right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. We're having the conversation even during the break and now looking at the possible solutions to all these issues that we've raised. We'd like to hear from you as well at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. And let me open up this conversation now for just possible solutions. And Cherubia, before we came back from the break, we were discussing something in terms of, you mentioned that including the male in the fight against FGM would really help. And you come from West Pokot. And we were talking about, do they understand that this is an archaic and backward cultural practice? Or is it that when they're told that it is against the law, then it becomes a legal issue and not a cultural issue anymore? So are they being forced, or do they understand why this should not be done?
They must understand that this is archaic and retrogressive because it doesn't add any value, because it brings a lot of effects to the girls. So I believe they should know that this is archaic and bring forward the inclusion of men, because men are the head of the families. And men being the head of the families, they make decisions, and their decisions are final. And if the male says no to FGM, then the others will follow up. The women who is the second after the male will follow up and say, we cannot continue with these practices. And if the women agree and understand that this bring a lot of effects and also tamper the future of young girls, they'll understand leaving behind, not discriminating these girls who have not undergone FGM, because they believe that if you're not circumcised, you're unclean. And being unclean, you are not supposed to address any audiences where male are in, and also make any decisions in the house. So that becomes a very key challenge to the girls. And also the girls themselves should also understand that this thing is archaic and doesn't add value, because that is where stigma and discrimination comes in. This is where other girls discriminate the one who is not circumcised, because they believe the girl is unclean and cannot do anything, cannot say a word in front of anybody. So the girls should also understand that this cannot go on, because this will tamper the future of girls. And bringing forward FGM also comes in with other factors of teen pregnancies, early marriages being a factor contributing to FGM, and also the changing climate actions. This is where the family view girls as wealth, and the poverty levels in the interior places, Samburu, Pokot, are very high. Yeah. So if parents see you as a wealth and basically they have nothing, they'll just say, we'll just marry you off, we get 30 cows or so. Yeah. Then what else? That will help them in their daily income, because poverty levels, lack of, there's no job opportunity. So where can we get money? You're the only option in the house. Okay,
yeah. And I like that you're saying that it's the men who will be in the forefront for this. Very true. Is it being perpetrated by the older women also, or the younger generation? Because when you say that there's some level of discrimination, that you are considered unclean.
Yes.
Is it the older generation that knows you have not gone through it? Who keeps the records here? Because how do they then identify that the community, you are not the one?
The perpetrators, because in the community, I think both genders, the girls, the male and the women, because there's this instance where when you're giving birth and you're not circumcised, they'll make sure that you're circumcised after delivery. So that is where they will confirm if you're not circumcised or if you're circumcised, and that is where the discrimination also comes in, because the other girls will know. So you interact with girls in daily basis, so they'll know how they'll consider you an outcast. Yeah. And this issues comes in. You see now
it becomes a village rumor.
A village rumor. Unclean. Imagine the stigma, knowing that Marcelina is unclean in the whole community. And basically, they'll do 1, 2, 3 to make sure that you are circumcised. That another options that we came through was also the perpetrators. Yeah. We were trying, because of the poverty levels, these perpetrators opt to engage in FGM, because the family will give you some cash to do the exercise. So if we're giving them another alternative income generating activity to focus and consider after they refuse and they say no to the exercise they did, so that we'll focus on them improving their income and also focusing on something that is productive rather than affecting the girls. Yeah.
And Nyabola, you mentioned something interesting when you started this discussion. You're talking about inclusion in politics. The two-thirds gender rule is one of the most elusive things in this country. In fact, the parliament itself was declared unconstitutional. So how do we ensure that this becomes a reality, especially inclusion in politics? Because once you have people who understand what the gaps are in leadership, then they can be addressed appropriately. But we seem to not have managed this at any given point.
Trevor, I know you are alive to the fact that, you know, we have a very good constitution. The 2010 constitution incorporates in everything and anything that, you know, talks about women inclusion at every level of leadership. But like Wakili has mentioned, our problem as Kenyans is implementation of the Constitution and the Act and everything that is provided in the Constitution. Now, if we want to talk about the two-thirds gender rule, we have various factors that at the end of the day, at the end of every general election, we find ourselves going back to, you know, before 2010, right? One of the issues that we've had that has been an impediment in implementing the two-thirds gender rule is political parties. Political parties have failed miserably in including women in very critical positions in the party. That's number one. Number two, we have various options of having the you know, nominations done. At the point of nominations, we have, you know, consensus, we have, you know, direct tickets, and it is within the political party's mandate to decide who goes for those, gets the direct tickets, for example. And you find that most of the contestants that are given the direct tickets are always male. And you'll find maybe 90%, 95% are male versus the female. And it is because we have a cultural effect of thinking that the society is still very patriarchal. We have a patriarchal mentality that the world belongs to men and women cannot actively participate in platforms like the political platforms and political spaces. So it takes us as Kenyans and the stakeholders involved to ensure that this particular, you know, thing is taken away. Another thing is the financial capability, right? Today, women find it very difficult to access you know, funds for electoral process. And you know very well that money is a necessary evil for any political or electoral process. And women have, it is on record that 1% of women actually are that is the only percentage that have successful access to money that they can use for electoral processes. Again, back to the political parties. Remember, political parties get funding, right? And these funds need to be used to facilitate political process within the parties. And one of the processes that they need to facilitate is participation of women in the political processes, elective positions and auto appointive positions. After electoral processes, just to take you back in 2022 and also 2017, if you look at the statistics, we are slowly growing. From 2013, after the implementation of the 2010 Constitution, and also after we had the devolved government, we've had an increase. We've seen an increase in the number of women that come out to go for elective positions. I want to also really commend the women governors or the governors that participated in governor positions. Right now we have 7 of them compared to 2017 where we had 3 of them. So it is, we are making the baby steps in terms of we women also recognizing that these platforms are open to us to participate in. If you look at the number of members of parliament, that has also grown. Number of members of county assemblies, that has also grown. So I think we are making very good progress. And I want to also commend the good job that our president has done to ensure that even in the cabinet, we have women representatives. So right now we have 8 compared to the 6 that we had in the previous administration. And I would want to encourage that is what we need to see. Even men that are in leadership positions within the political parties, within the financial institutions, or any other form of leadership, need to encourage women to come out and go for these positions.
Yeah, Bosibori, you wanted to jump onto this?
Yes, I want to add on what Mercy is saying.
Yeah.
Now that we are onto the affirmative action, and of course, this was supposed to cure the gender parity that we have currently. And of course, the two-third gender role dynamics are quite elusive, like you said, because of the matrix and the logistics that are supposed to make sure that it goes through. First, I have to come back to the basics, you know. First, we're in a democratic country. Kenya is a democracy. So when we say that in the two-third gender rule, that there shouldn't be more than two-thirds of either gender in elective and appointive positions, what do we mean and what is achievable? With appointive positions, of course, we can always achieve because it depends with the appointing authority. But elections, so different, you know, because democracy and election is not a rational decision-making process, right? And you realize that human beings are irrational creatures. When it comes to elections, we go with our heart. We go with emotions, feelings, and biases. And like she said, there's a lot of biases from the patriarchal angle. Because you realize that a lot of people, even if you give a direct ticket for a woman, for example, ODM is maybe a popular party somewhere, and you say, now this time round, we want affirmative action, we're going to give a direct ticket to a certain woman. There's some societies that can never accept a woman for a leader. And in such places, they would rather vote for a very unpopular male candidate. How do you cure that, you know? And I echo sentiments of Professor Sean Rosenberg. He's one of the biggest political psychologists. He says that eventually democracy will devour itself, weakened and burdened by its structural constraints. These are some of the structural constraints that we are talking about, because the voter, the common voter, is very incompetent, is very euphoric, and they don't vote with logic or reason. It is emotions. You know, and these emotions are, of course, are biased. So then how do you ensure that within our irrational human being, we can be able to make sure that affirmative actions comes through, even with the lack of political goodwill? So
that
for
is
me,
the biggest question. So how do you do that at a time when there's
I think
biases?
affirmative action can never work in a democracy, especially where elections have to be done. And also in societies where people cannot accept women as leaders, even women themselves cannot vote for fellow women because of a phenomenon that we refer to as internalized sexism. You know, again, we go back to our culture, how we are socialized, you know, where we see men as superior beings and therefore default leaders. So when you are socialized in such terms, it becomes difficult for your fellow woman to come and ask you for a vote and accepting to actually support them for an office.
Okay.
So therefore, these issues about affirmative action, we know that it's been a decade later and that it cannot be achieved through elections, and that we do not have political goodwill for the same to happen. And I think then we need to change the constitution and the legislation around it and look for a different mechanism to ensure that we have balanced gender perspectives in policy formulation, budgeting and oversight.
Okay.
Because clearly this cannot be achieved through elections. We need a different mechanism so that we have those gender perspectives come on the table the same way.
All right. Otto, do you agree that it can't be achieved through elections because sometimes even the women themselves can't vote for fellow women? And how then do we change that? Is it now a matter of teaching the younger generation that everybody is equal, but is it really true? Is everyone equal?
There's a book called The Animal Farm. That book has taught us that we are not equal. We can never be equal. That's for a fact. And what I'm saying is we can try to achieve achieve equity.
Yeah.
So that we are all at par. and that's something that I think is achievable. But I had wanted to talk about the issue of the third gender rule.
Yeah.
I wanted to say the reason why it's not working, it's because we lack the political goodwill. Remember, CJ Emeritus Maraga issued an advisory to the former government to dissolve parliament because they were unable to achieve it.
Yeah.
And he gave reasons, and he even called the Speaker of both the National Assembly and the Senate to explain why they had not yet enacted the legislation, and they did not have a reason for it. How many times has the bill been tabled in Parliament? Why is it that when our parliamentarians are voting for increase in finances or maybe budgetary allocations to them something, they always have numbers? But when it comes to issues of representation, to that gender rule, we can't achieve it. All of a sudden, there's no quorum. It's not that we cannot do it, it's just that we have refused to do it.
Yeah. So
And
there's no goodwill.
Yeah, there's no goodwill.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, don't worry.
Yes.
I see you all want to jump in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trevor, there's one more gap I would like to highlight, and that is the biasness from media itself.
Media.
Media, yes.
Okay.
A lot of times the media...
Wako kuambiana ukweli.
No, but it's good to say
Yes,
how women feel.
Yeah.
A lot of times you find that the media does not give equal opportunity to women to articulate issues that are affecting our country, that are affecting themselves. You know, you need to be included to speak about things that affect you directly. And when media actually invites or includes women, it's when we are discussing issues about gender, not issues affecting our country and affecting serious issues like climate change, economy, matters of the nation, and now El Nino. You see, women are not there. But at the end of the day, these are the people who are directly affected more. We talk now of El Nino. We hear there's El Nino coming. A lot of money has been set aside. Like I'm talking about the older women. They are the ones who are in the rural areas. They are the ones who are in the farms. They are the ones when the water comes who carry them away. No one is involving them. Maybe some of them cannot even access TV to hear what we are saying. So how do we reach them? We need to get women more involved in the medias to articulate issues affecting our country, affecting women directly, because it is until you get that woman from Pokot, like she's here today, who can talk about those issues and about the solving the problem. Men need to be included. This is a societal issue. This is a place where you say, what if you, a woman, okay, she wants to stand for elective position like the governor, like in the case in Meru, my community. And now you find she is here. And the men, they'll be voters, women are voters. How do we get them? So we must have men, both men and women on board. Thank you for having all the women today. But this is a societal problem. We need to have men involved. We need to, this is like a round table discussion, because more of it actually is not even about policies. Like the advocate is saying, the laws are there, but implementation, who is going to implement? There are things you cannot even use force to implement, because you can't tell a man, you must vote, or a community that does not vote for women, you must do it. So you can't do that. But if you educate them, you bring them to reason together, the way women can also articulate issues the same way men do, or even better, and that will come out well. When the media brings more women out to discuss hand issues, and also they say, oh, even women can do it. Because why do you go to school anyway? We have a lot of information. Like the climate change thing, how many women did we see there? The El Nino thing, I'm saying, the older persons, the older women, the ones who are in the rural areas, we need to hear about the budget. What are they doing about it? It is them who are going to be dislocated. It's them who take a lot of medicine now. If the El Nino comes, I think, will they be able to access the healthcare? Are they even told about it? So these things, we need media more fair. And yes, about the circumcisers. The circumcisers, they do it as a job. And until we come up with something that will give them like an alternative, something to do. They will continue encouraging. They will continue being even brought to Nairobi and circumcise kids here. It happens.
Because for them, it's a source of income.
It's a source of income. It's an activity that generates money. So we must think about that circumciser, not just the person who is being circumcised.
Okay.
Because for them, it's a job.
Okay.
And that's how their family earns.
Yeah.
Yes, Trevor,
Yes,
just to add on my colleague here, that is what I was talking about. Social accountability comes in, because another issue comes in is the insecurities at the borders of these rural areas, for example, Pokot and the Samburu and Turkana.
Yeah.
That influences the girls' access to education. And if it influences the girl access to education, it means he cannot go on with this education. That is why the dynamic talks comes in. The dynamic talks, in my perspective, is getting those political leaders to go and talk to the people, and also not only the political leaders, but the female spouse of the political leaders, so that they can talk to these on the border, so that we can have peace, so that our children can access education. Because they say, I love this quote that they say, I'm not a Pokot, I'm not a bandit, but a Pokot. Because this comes an instance when I was going to an activity in Nairobi. Then I was like, I'm from Pokot. They were telling me, do you have a gun? So I was wondering, how can it be that way? So the talk is coming with the dynamic talks, and also giving them age-appropriate sexual reproductive, because they don't know. If we give them the information, we do awareness outreaches, will work, and also coming up with accountability levels, and also the strategies and action plan that includes all genders in decision making. That will be a great opportunity to start off as a baby step to working towards achieving the goals of girls, and making sure that their future it's a promising future for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Karaoke?
Let me begin by stating that when the Constitution 2010 was being formulated, one of the affirmative action policies they ensured was enshrined in that particular document was the position of the county women legislator, the 47 women who then find themselves as legislators. That was somewhat to come in and assist in the issue of 1/3 representation, but also provide a platform and exposure for women, especially in communities that would rather not vote women in, then are able to see women in these positions, women implementing policies, women representing them, women leaders being accessible to them, and just creating a platform for these women to then come in other positions, vying and winning. A good example is Gladys Wanga, a good example is Kawira Mwangaza. But that said, I think I agree with everyone here when you talk about political goodwill.
Yeah.
And when you talk about political goodwill, then political parties must be very proactive and intentional about bringing women on board as members and decision makers, key decision makers in political parties. If women are not able to make decisions within political parties, it then becomes very hard for them to lobby for policies that directly impact us or benefit us and benefit the girl child in this country. So it is very important that political parties are able to do that, and as the Interparties Youth Forum, that is one of the key areas we are focusing on, and ensuring that young women, especially within this sphere, are able to come in. But I will also bring in another angle. We also have ourselves to blame for this. I hear all of us talk about, we need social accountability, we need stakeholders, government needs to do this, but how do we hold ourselves to account? How many of us here, for instance, have participated in county integration
Development plan.
Yes, CIDPs. How many of us have participated in those forums? What do you know about your county's CIPDs? How does that impact the local woman? How does that woman participate in some of this planning at the county level, at the ward level? Does this woman understand that an MCA is the most powerful and the most accessible leader for you? Do you know that this MCA is supposed to ensure that there is a health facility for you, that women in your ward are able to give birth in clean and safe healthcare facilities? Do women at the local level understand what the universal healthcare is, and how then are they able to hold their ward leaders to account? How are they able to hold their governors to account? How are they able to hold their legislators to account?
Yeah.
We have ourselves to blame, and we have a role to play. We equally have to be very proactive, very vigilant, ensuring that we are able to recall our leaders. We're able to ask very key questions in some of these spaces, and just generally understand what governance and policy looks like in this country.
The personal accountability is a big issue as well.
Correct.
But there's something, speaking of accountability, Nyabwala, you also mentioned the issue of HIV prevalence and teen pregnancy. I know it's not a one-size-fits-all conversation, but how much of this can be blamed on lack of parental guidance? Because there was a conversation that the parents are simply just absent. And it is not because they want to. It's because there's a hard economic time, so everyone is out there. As opposed to the past, where there was an actual parent who would probably just take care of the children. And somebody goes out to hunt.
Yeah.
Nowadays, people don't hunt. Everybody goes to work. How much of it can be blamed on lack of parental guidance? Because we know statistics show that 98 people get HIV infection every week, young children. That means 14 per day.
Trevor, you know that HIV prevalence is actually directly proportional to the economic status of any nation in this way. So the parents that are missing in their children's lives are out there busy trying to make ends meet. So you find that they really don't have much time to explain to the children that, hey, there's this disease, this is what you can do to prevent it, and this. But remember, we have various stakeholders in this particular process, right? This is not a parental issue. It's a societal issue, because at the end of the day, that child interacts with so many people in the community, in the society, not just the child. Because look at it this way. Trevor, today, if you have a child, your child is picked at 5:30 a.m., returns home at probably another 5:30 p.m. The parent is also absent, working at that particular time, probably will arrive home at around 8 p.m. So really, what time do you have as a parent to interact with your child? Even on other issues, on education matters, just to check on your assignment and just try to train the child. So we have various stakeholders in upbringing of this child and trying to let them understand that there's this disease that they need to ensure that they stay away from. So we have the teachers. Education plays a critical role in HIV education and prevalence. What are they taught? Is the curriculum robust enough to ensure that we have captured everything that needs to be captured in terms of passing the information that this is what this disease is? What do we need to do to not get it or get infected? Abstain, do the necessary. Then we also have religion. Religion is also very critical in this particular process. Religious leaders are cultural gatekeepers in any society, because look at it this way, every Sunday, every Saturday, every Friday, we interact with our religious leaders. You go to the mosque, you go to the churches, and there are teachings that they'll tell you that, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. So they are also stakeholders in this particular process. So we also need to ensure that they have the right information to pass to our children out there when they go to Sunday school, for example. We have government institutions.
Yeah.
Our Wakili has talked about the social protection department. It is within the labor, actually it's within the labor ministry, right? What are they doing to ensure that this education and FGM issues are addressed at the ward level? My sister here from Pokot has talked about the challenges that they go through as FGM. Remember, FGM is right now in Kenya, 4 million people are subjected to FGM, right? That means 1 in every 5 female or children or girls are subjected to FGM. That forms about 8 to 10% of the Kenyan population. So that tells you how FGM has entrenched into our societies and community, but so little is being done about it.
Yeah.
So the government needs to come out. For example, in areas, because I know they have markings on areas where there is a prevalence of FGM. Up to the ward level, is there like an office where you can report these issues? Is there an office that you can go and, be told that, hey, let us stop this particular cultural thing, and it does not add value to us, it is actually declared an international infringement of human rights. So what is the government doing about it?
Okay.
So all these stakeholders put in together need to have a product, or we need to see like a child that is a product of all these institutions and all these gatekeepers.
All right. And Mori, I'm bringing in the angle of the parenting, lack of parental guidance, because it captures almost everything we're talking about here, including the cultural perspective of it all. Because it is the parents who will then instill a change of mindset to the younger people. How much of this can we blame on lack of parental guidance?
Actually, like 50%, because our culture changed. This is a working parent.
Yeah.
This is an absent parent. Like she says, the child is picked at 5 a.m. in the morning and back 5 when no one is at home. So what actually becomes the parent of today is technology. So technology also has to blame when it is not controlled, because most of our parents, all they do, you buy an iPhone for a kid, and these kids, they can, these girls or boys anyway, they can access almost anything there. Even on the TVs, you have Wi-Fi's in the house. When they come, they just watch anything. And our kids can even remain watching even funny movies, even at night, our girls. And then they tend to practice. What they see, what they hear, their peer friends saying and doing is what they do, because we have no time. And it's not our fault, it's the way things are. This is a child you take to boarding schools when they are like in class 3, 4, 5 years old. So that bond between the parent and them is not there anymore. This child finishes class 8, the next move is going to another boarding school. From there, they just move. There's no connection. Even actually, that is where the problem of neglecting parents when they are old comes from, because you do not have that relationship. The child knows the house girl, they knows the teacher, even the teacher may know your child more than you do. And so technology, so parents are not doing their role. Even just the other day, I think a week ago, the Minister of Social Protection and Social and Protection, and they developed a parenting guideline that it has taken like 3 years to develop, and it is rare right now. It is on. If the parents are able to get it, they can get it. It's online on the Social Protection Department page. You can get it. Okay. But time is not there. The way things are very hard. So everyone is running. Dad is running. Mom is running. Like I said, technology. There's somewhere I saw online, you saw in the house, Dad is very busy here with his phone. Even when he comes home, he's on WhatsApp. Mom is on WhatsApp. And the child is left them behind. When the child goes to dad, go to your mom. I think you saw that clip going around. It was trending. And when you go to mom, go to dad. And now the poor child, the minute that those parents are with them, they are busy on their phone. That family connection is not there anymore. Before, people used to eat together in the evening. You used to come back from school, you find mom home, like our time. But that does not happen anymore. So their parenting is out. And that time, almost everyone was a parent. Anyone in the neighborhood could correct the child. But not today. You touch somebody's child doing something wrong, you're in court, and the court, the right says. So the more rights you have, the rights, our culture, because we have also good culture. It's not everything that we can blame. So that communal or societal parenting also is not there anymore because of the rights. So we are missing out.
So Bosibori, where do we draw the balance now? Because it's an interesting conversation we're having here, that the parents, if they're all empowered, then they're away. They're absentee parents. If they're all at home, somebody's not being neglected. So where do you draw the balance now?
Very, very interesting times. And Trevor, can we also even look at issues to do with urban poverty? I'm very passionate about it because, like she said, she comes from West Pokot, I just come from Kawangware here, one of the informal settlements in Nairobi. And I interact with women in Kawangware every day and girls. First, even let's see how urban poverty works. You know, if you've been to an informal settlement, people live in very small spaces. And within those small spaces, the children live there, the parents live there, they cook there, they do everything there. In the next house, the same happens. A full set of family also is growing there. So when the children are growing up, they see everything that is happening. You understand? Even without technology. Yeah. They understand the physiology and the biology of everybody.
So they're exposed at
they're exposed at a very young age.
Yeah.
So first, I'm dealing with urban poverty because I know that the dynamics in rural areas is quite different because people live differently. So in terms of urban poverty, again, you realize that a lot of people who live in informal settlements, they work very hard, you know, like they walk to work and they walk home from work. So they spend the whole day either walking to work or working or coming back home. So by the time they get home is very, very late. So they don't know what their children have been up to, and they don't have any energy left for guidance purposes, you know, and which now begs the question, what is the government doing to end urban poverty? What are these policies that perpetuate urban poverty, and how can we end it so that we can at least alleviate some of these problems that we encounter every day? I saw President Ruto was launching a few houses, the housing units in Kibra, and I was glad that he said that in the next decade or so, there's not gonna be any Kibra. Very, very good sentiment there about. But then, have we dealt with policies that perpetuate this kind of living standards? Because you could be alleviating a Kibra here and creating a different Kibra in another side, you know? Is it about income inequalities? What brings people to Nairobi to suffer, for example? Is it that you have to come to Nairobi? If we had better opportunities in our rural setups, could then people prefer to live in other areas other than come and crowd in Nairobi? So how do we alleviate poverty without taking this problem elsewhere while taking it from here to another place, number one? So those are things that have to be looked into, how to alleviate poverty, and if there's policies that can be worked on. And you know that we live in a very capitalist society. A friend of mine was telling me that Kenya is more capitalist even than the US. And that most of our policies are guided by the oligarchs, you know, the people, the bourgeoisie, the people who own the means of production. And for us, it's just to work for them and die. Are these the people who influence our policies? You know, is there a way that we can have now a conversation around our social and economic setups as a country on a very serious note? Because most of these income inequalities, you find that most of these big companies get a lot of money, you know, from the production and stuff like that. But what they pay, the wages, do we have a minimum wage for every industry in Kenya? And what is the government doing to ensure that it's implemented to the letter? That if you work in the construction sector, this is the minimum wage you have to earn. And make sure that everybody is earning at that amount. If you are a domestic worker, this is the minimum you should earn, and this is how, and it has to be implemented to the letter, you know. So we have to look at all these policies, we have to look at what the government is doing, and so that we do not take one problem and take it to another place.
Cherubia.
In addition to what you said about parental irresponsibility, in my case of view, you cannot tell me that a lady who was married off at 14 will become a good parent. You cannot tell me. So because literacy levels in these rural areas brings up the need that parents should be educated, because the information they give me as a child depends on the level of education he got or how he or she is empowered. So basically the literacy levels in those rural areas cause a major effect to the parents giving information to their kids. And from what my colleagues have said, this is bringing up a multi-sectoral approach approach, bringing like-minded people together so that we can maneuver through all these issues so that the girls can have a better future. Setting up of child protection units in all the sub-counties, because in Pokot we have one child protection unit which deals with the youths in contact and in conflict with the law, so that they cannot be mixed with other criminals in the jail, because there's also in the cells there's these stigmas and being influenced, there's all those kinds. So I believe bringing like-minded people, multi-sectoral approach, protection unit, accountability, and also working out with the policies and making sure that they work. We have in my case we are working on bringing out an anti-FGM policy in West Pokot, so that if these policies go through, then issues on FGM will be dealt with. Issues on early marriages, teen pregnancies will be dealt with very soon.
So yours, it's an interesting angle that you bring, because if she's married off at 14, she has...
Imagine a child having a child at 14 years of age. I was wondering about, I was going to the interior places of Pokot, that is Kamla, Masol Road there. You're wondering, they've never seen a 14-seater matatu. They're standing there wondering. And if you're going and you're saying literally a 7-year-old girl having another child, like 2, and again she's pregnant. Imagine a family like that. Where are we heading?
So a child herself cannot be a parental guide.
Very true.
Because she herself has no idea what parenting is.
Very true, because she was married off at 14, no education of parenting. How can you tell me she would manage to parent a young girl?
Okay. That's a very interesting angle. Otto, this issue of parenting, because I hadn't seen it from that angle. It's interesting for me.
It's very interesting because I'm a product of a teen mom. My mother had my sister, my brother, and I. By the time she was 20, she had the 3 of us. Yes, she had 3 children. So she started at 16. And again, I think it's how she found herself in a situation, because she was forced to drop out of school so that she can work as a house help, so that her brothers can get to go to school. So she wanted to go to school, but she found herself in a position where she couldn't go to school, so she married early. Anyway, my mother brought us up differently. She said because she didn't have an education, it was not going to happen to us. So all of us have gone to school. My younger sister is graduating in December. So again, it has more to do with the person. You can be put in a place, but how do you handle the situation? Like for me, I take from my mother that, well, she had a lot going on. 20 with 3 kids. I'm 30 and I don't have a child, and it's crazy. I find the whole parenting thing like a whole lot of big responsibility. And then I also think that in this parenting thing, everybody should take responsibility. As a parent, you decided to have children. Now, I'm not talking about the teen pregnancies, the teen moms. I'm talking about parents who've decided they're having children. You've decided you're having a child. Be there for the child. You don't leave your child to the teachers. The teachers have children. Who's going to take care of those teachers, the teachers' children? Because you've decided you let your kid be parented by the teacher. And again, we keep saying, let's teach, let the teachers teach the children. But when the teachers do teach the children, we're like, no, we don't want sex education in schools. We don't want our kids to be taught this and that. So what do you want as a parent? Everybody should just take responsibility so that we can have an equilibrium where we don't just push blame to this person and that person because of how our kids turned out.
All right, Karaoke?
As far as parenting goes, first of all, family is the most basic and fundamental unit of any civilization. So ultimately, the role of parenting, guiding, and nurturing children falls squarely on parents. Mothers are critical players, fathers are critical players. Mothers nurture human beings, fathers nurture upright citizens. We have to find a way to ensure that parents are very present and very proactive in raising their children. And I'm not talking about teenage mothers, teenage fathers. In fact, when you talk about teenage mothers, then we start entertaining the issue of pedophilia or sexual violence against children. So that one, as it is non-negotiable. pedophilia, teenage marriages, child marriages, if you're a perpetrator, go to prison. There is no negotiating or talking about culture.
Mambo ni matatu.
Mambo ni matatu. Mambo ya watoto hatuta negotiate. Mambo ya well-being na safety ya watoto hatuta negotiate. Go to prison. Simple. But now, my sister talked about capitalism and how it can be cannibalistic, and it's true. In Kenya, we are having a very huge issue of cannibalistic capitalism. I call it chronic capitalism, where corporates directly influence and control how policies are created by the legislature and the implementation by the executive, and even maybe lobbying at the judiciary. So mine is a direct address to President William Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua. You must create an environment where Kenyan parents are able to raise children. And it's not just about the girl child now, it's girl child, boy child. We are seeing a lot of truant, a lot of angst, and a lot of erratic behavior from our children. And again now, let me go back to what I talked about earlier, which is extremism. When you have absent parenting or absent parents, you have children getting into some very, very funny situations, because then that is where they're able to be seen, that is where they're able to be heard, and children are very impressionable. So if I come and validate you and tell you, you know what, you're special, but this is how I want, but this is the way you should go, children will listen and they'll be controlled. And in that, in that instance, we lose a lot of children, a lot of girls, but mostly a lot of young men. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, it ties to the issue of extremism in my own community. I come from Mount Kenya, and right now we are seeing a resurgence of apparent revertist or traditionalist cult movements that in turn are raising or bringing back the issue of female genital mutilation within the Kikuyu community. Young girls are undergoing these things, and even older women, but secretly, to the extent that it is being forced upon them, including older women. There is, in fact, an incident last year where one of the news outlets gave a story of how a woman in Moranga was accosted in the middle of the night by men of a particular sect, traditionalist sect, and they forcefully circumcised her. And the perpetrator or the main plotter of that incident was her husband, who had just joined that cult. So it is very important when you talk about some of these things, extremism, cultures, who gets to parent what, who gets to be present for children. It's very important that our president and our deputy president understand that our social fabric is very vulnerable. Our collective psyche at the moment is very vulnerable, and they need to address that.
Interesting. Let me bring up some feedback and then we get into your comments on what the people are saying at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. Let's bring that up on screen and see what you're saying. A lot of feedback coming through. Let's see if we can read some of them here. Gabi Wakasiaka says FGM is demolishing our society. The only solution to end this harmful practice of FGM in East Africa is to uproot all primary factors that cause this FGM. That's social acceptance and cultural awareness, and improve on the level of awareness. And this I'd like to hear what Cherubia has to say on this, because the issue around the social acceptance and cultural awareness, that's where we were talking about earlier on. So who changes first? Is it the older generation or the younger generation? Who should be spoken to here?
In my perspective, the older generation should consider first.
They should be the forefront.
They should be the forefront, because the younger ones have accepted that this one cannot continue. But we keep forces from the older generation that makes it, they want the culture to be ongoing, cause a major effect. And that comes in with my colleague reminded me about the trends that comes in on FGM. These days you see it as a ceremony. I think the plan is as a ceremony that is being taken, like a prayer ceremony, something like that. But deep down, FGM is taking place. These are the trends that we must catch up, so that we make sure that we end this harmful cultural practice, because these trends, and also focusing on the older generation to understand that this affects the girls and also the boy child, will be a great change.
So sometimes it's camouflaged. It looks like a cultural event, but in true sense it's FGM.
Yes.
And there's no reporting structure.
There's no
because
like
in West Pokot, if you see it, where do you go? Is there
Exactly.
a place that is specific that
nothing.
you know? Because we know in police stations there are gender desks now.
Yeah.
Yes.
But is that
Inclusion of gender desks, not all police stations have gender desks,
Yeah.
let me tell you. If you go there, you'll have to wait for those who came before you to continue. So I'm telling you, waiting for that long,
Yeah.
and you're being circumcised, and basically knowing the rescue centers are too far. That's why I included the issue of child protection units. Those units should be set in different sub-counties of Pokot so that they can catch up, and also these children officers knowing that this trends comes in, because if I'm coming and I'm seeing a religious practice taking place, I won't see that this is FGM going on.
Yeah.
But these trends that we need to catch up and know and go deep down to find that and also master it so that we can able to change, because they realize that the Kenyan community now is fighting FGM. They're coming with alternative ways to continue with that practice.
Okay, interesting. Let's see what else you're saying here. Omo says there's this belief among women that all their day-to-day problems are created by men. That men is what is wrong with this world, and they want to liberate themselves from men. The belief is so demeaning. So Ibra, let's shelve this for a bit and talk about it so that we see. Just hold on the other reactions in just a bit. Let's come back to studio and see what you have to say about this. Yes, Maureen.
My sister talked about counties. I think the county governments have a lot to do with solving these problems because the smallest unit of government is the county government. In this county government is where the communities live. And these people who are living in these communities, including the leaders we elect, the governor, the MCAs, they come from these communities. They understand these problems really well. We want to see where counties are held accountable. Because it's them who understand. The governor, the MCAs of Pokot understand this issue more than someone in Central understand, more than someone in national government would understand. So instead of just saying the government, I think that's why we have the devolved government, so we can customize our problems. Look for homegrown problems, homegrown answers, solutions. So the county government, each county government on this issue of parenting, this issue of FGM and all these issues affecting the women, we should start from there. Okay. Let's see the counties having policies that take care of the issues of women. Okay. Because they can easily be held accountable. That is someone who can say, my MCA didn't talk about my problem, so then the next time we are not electing them. My governor, who is a local governor, if he does not do this, we don't hear policies, we don't hear things being implemented, we don't hear women participating on their issues, we don't get them back. Okay. This is a conversation we want. Yeah. We want this, and as we hold them accountable, she talked about us being to blame. Yeah. Sometimes, remember, we said 85% of the local people, I mean, in the rural areas, they are not even educated. They don't have that education. So they don't even understand the importance of participation. So again, it goes to hold accountable to our leaders that we have elected. Sure. It's a responsibility to educate the community that you need to participate. Yeah. You need to see if this law is fit for you. You need to question. But what happens down there, you get the MCAs, you get the CECs, you get the governor. They have a list of the people who voted them, the people who will agree with whatever they say. They are the people, they are just handpicked. So it's not like there's no democracy there. There's not like there's an announcement, all of you come and we take. They don't discuss anything. They just come to stop it. Okay. So the county governments have a huge role to play on this. Okay. Another one is the inclusion of, we say this is a societal problem. Yeah. So when we are discussing this, and it should be more frequent, not just on Girls International Day, we need to have men on board. We need to have our leaders on board. In this forum here, we should have even a governor here to tell us what they are doing in the counties. We should have our MCAs. What places do they have? And then we follow that very, very, very seriously. Okay. Again, Mendy, I said you have a huge role to play. We need you to include women, to discuss issues, hard issues, and not just any time. We need to be included during prime times, when everyone can listen to women and say, yes. So if women can do it, men can do it, they can also do it. Okay. The other one is like the policies addressing my president and his deputy. This is not even like to beg. We need policies to protect older persons. We don't have policies in this country except for the Constitution, Article 57, where it says that it's the responsibility of the family and the government to give reasonable care to the older person. Reasonable. You know, of course, the Constitution cannot elaborate. So we need acts of parliament. We need our parliamentarians to take it serious, because these are the laws that will take care of the big girl child when she grows old.
Okay. All right. But I know you need to jump in, but let me finish up with this feedback really quick. Then I'll give you all a chance for closing remarks, because we're running out of time. Babu Michael says, I believe that we are on the right direction and have made good strides when it comes to matters protection of the girl child. The government, community, and various non-governmental organizations have been in the forefront on this. We shouldn't tire, okay? What else you're saying here? Charlo Wood Rosie says, it is the responsibility of each and everyone within the society to take care of the elderly and less vulnerable. It is very unfortunate that some people don't do much towards the protection of human rights. FGM should be abolished in totality, okay? Gabi says FGM is demolishing our society. I think we did read this earlier on. Let's go to the next one. And Sibob Otieno says the gaps to protect GBV is mostly contributed by corruption, which leads to poor investigation and more so poverty when victims are compromised to conceal evidence. Okay. Engineer Lazaro says discriminating boy child during girl child empowerment classes are some of the reasons why we are not making headway. Multi-agencies championing children's rights should involve both sexes in the empowerment classes.
Agreed. Yes.
Gori Baraza says the girl child is not out of the woods yet. She's faced by a plethora of challenges like FGM, early marriage, teen pregnancy, and gender-based violence. It's time for women in leadership to formulate policies that will safeguard the girl child. All right. Let's take some quick closing remarks here. And Bosibori, there was an issue around an us versus them. I think Omo said it, that mostly women think that their problem is the men. How do we ensure that when we're having these conversations, it doesn't end into an us versus them sort of conversation?
I think it's on the education and it's on the beliefs. And as a great consumer of philosophical works of Cicero, Aristotle, and other philosophers that came before us, I would like to drop a quote by Marcus Aurelius. He was a Roman emperor and a Stoic philosopher. He said that we should follow the natural order of the universe. And the natural order of the universe is that we as human beings should reach our greatest potential. And by reaching greatest potential is not about validating who is who, but it's about moving together as humanity. So we should not be talking about, you know, gender issues. We should be talking about humanity. If there needs to be affirmative action so that all of us can move in the same front, then we have to do it. Then otherwise we perish together as fools.
Okay. Cherubia, closing remarks, 1 minute.
To total it up, I believe that youth can make changes in their own issues affecting them, and I believe that if you want to grow a tree to what you desire it to be, you must tender it as young as a sapling. So every step, we tender in every step and making sure that we grow and make the changes in any possible state, then we'll make a greater future.
Okay. Otto, 1 minute, closing remarks.
I think that as far as I'll just do the legal bit. As far as this is concerned, we have the correct laws. The laws are in place. The only issues that we are facing are issues of implementation and enforcement. And if that sector is well taken care of, then we will realize great progress towards elimination of, you know, gender-based violence, FGM, and all these domestic issues that we keep facing.
Okay.
Yes.
Karaoke, 1 minute, closing remark.
Thank you. I love where we've come as a country, especially when it comes to matters women involvement in decision making. But I would love to see more women participate in politics, in governance, in decision making processes, from the ward level all the way to the national level. And this is a clarion call to women. You have to be serious. You have to be proactive. You have to vigilantly monitor what your county and the national government is implementing to ensure that it not only benefits you, but benefits the girls that come after us for posterity of this country. We have a nation to build. Let us come together and build our nation.
Okay. Nyambwala, 1 minute.
I want to call upon the stakeholders that are involved in any child care and upbringing So this involves the teachers in our education sector and institution. This involves the parents, the guardians that have these children at home. Let us teach them the right culture and the right things at home, in school, and also let the government institutions play their role in ensuring that we protect the rights of children.
All right. Moria, 1 minute.
Mine is, my message goes out there to the men of this country. They should not think that women are out to fight with them. We are here because we want a balanced society, and we want you to participate, because the woman we are talking about, it's your daughter, is your mother, is your aunt, is your grandma. These are the women we are talking about. So let us all come together on a round table and discuss this issue as a communal society, not having sections of who to blame. It's not a blaming thing.
Okay. Thank you so much for making time this morning. Gashui Kariuki, Director Ustawi KE, Lucy Moria, CEO, Founder, Kenya Pro Aging Organization, Mercy Nyabwala, Governance Strategist, Irene Otto, Advocate of the High Court, Nora Bosibori, Policy Analyst, and Marcelina Cherubia, Youth for Change Advocate. Thank you all for making time this morning, and thank you all for the feedback that you sent through. We're taking a quick break now. My part is done. It's always a pleasure being here with you. My name is Trevor Mbija. Coming up next is Ben Sue. It's Level Up Friday. He's the one who can dance. Mimi, see you in a bit.